Hello, today I'm taking a look at a blast from my past. This is Superman for the Sega Genesis, released in 1992 by Virgin Games. Going to go ahead and leave everything default here. As usual, I do have the audio disabled. I wouldn't want to get in any trouble for using music that I don't have the rights to. So, this is a fairly typical, for the time, scrolling action game with some mild platforming elements. This is a game that I bought when I was a fairly young lad, and I bought it pretty much sight unseen based on the box art. You have to remember, this being the early 90s, it was before the internet as we knew it existed. So if you were interested in a game but didn't want to spend the money right away, you would either have to rent it or wait for a magazine to come out with a review. And a lot of times games did sell based on the box art or just the licensed character that they featured. That was definitely the case with my buying this game, and I was a bit disappointed with it. If I were to describe it today in one word, it would be meh. That's M-E-H. I mean, it's not a terrible game. It's certainly not a broken mess like the Nintendo 64 version by any means, but there's just something really generic and uninspired about it. There's not a lot that makes it feel uniquely Superman. I kind of feel like they could have dropped any protagonist in there, and it would have been essentially the same experience. Let's take a look at what Superman can do. He has a different superpower in every level. In this one, he can do a super punch, which does a lot of damage, but it takes time to recharge. He can jump. He can jump a little higher if you press the up arrow. He can punch from a standing position, a crouch position, or while jumping. And he can also do a dash move if you double tap any direction. And from that, you can jump and do a jump kick. Graphically, I think this looks okay. I'm going to give it some leeway for being an early 90s game. I think the colors are nice and vivid. I like the backgrounds. I think the character animations are pretty good for the most part. He's walking kind of stiffly, and I dare say kind of arrogantly, but he's Superman. I guess he can do that. I do like the way his cape sways and flies around when he jumps there. That's all pretty good. I do wish he were a little bit larger on the screen, though. The music in this game is pretty crap. I'm kind of glad I have it turned off for that reason. There's a little power-up. It just sounds kind of, I don't know, like MIDI elevator music. It doesn't really fit very well with the tone of the level. And let's talk about the enemies. These are another part of the generic factor for me. They almost feel like the enemies from a scrolling shoot-'em-up game. You know, like Gradius or R-Type or something. You know, you've got these little UFOs. Some of them require one punch, some require multiple, like this one here. They move in fairly predictable patterns, and they just don't seem like the kind of enemies that would be a match for Superman. And every now and then you do have guys in robot suits and guys in jumpsuits flying at you. But yeah, not quite sure about the enemies. Honestly, the action in this game reminds me a lot of that Dick Tracy game that I did a Let's Play of about 2 months ago. In fact, it reminds me of the kind of crappy levels from Dick Tracy where you run out of bullets. Because let's face it, I'm supposed to be playing as arguably the Earth's mightiest hero here, and I'm running along rooftops punching people. Something a little bit disappointing about that, if I may be honest. But whatever. I've definitely played worse licensed games than this. Back in the day, I was a big fan of Superman and most comic book characters in general, and I guess in a way I still am. I liked the Christopher Reeve Superman movies, at least the first one or two. They got kind of weird after that. I haven't really kept up with the new Superman movies. They look good. They look like they have good special effects and everything. I understand there's a new one about to come out, Superman vs. Batman. Honestly, that seems like it would be a little bit one-sided. Don't get me wrong, I adore Batman, because he's one of the few believable superheroes. You know, he doesn't have any superpowers. He has a lot of complexity to him as a character. But yeah, my money would be on Superman in that fight. Okay, that's the first level. The second one is a little bit different. This is almost like a scrolling shoot 'em up type. You're scrolling vertically upwards. You've got these assholes trying to drop rocks on you from apartment windows, and now you have the eye laser power, or heat vision if you'd rather. It's not very powerful. It gets more powerful if you let it charge, but it still takes a lot of hits to kill enemies with that, and I wish that were not so. I just died there. Realistically, Superman should not be killed by people throwing rocks out of windows. Call me a purist if you must. This is tricky. It's hard to avoid all this stuff and survive to the top of the level where you fight the first boss enemy. Let's try that again. So lasers are good for destroying the rocks, but not for much else. I know that games from this era are a lot harder than they are now, but it would have been nice to get some kind of a power-up before facing this boss here. I don't even know who this is, honestly. Seems like kind of a dorky little guy, but if he walks into you, he does damage. And those flowers that he throws at you also do damage. So it's just a matter of avoiding him and using that super punch. It's actually one of the few times when the super punch is useful, because otherwise it leaves you vulnerable for longer than it should. Really now, a bubblegum blowing supervillain. There's something very Nintendo-esque about this whole fight. Again, you would think that a little dope like this would be no problem for the Man of Steel. I think one more hit will do it. There we go. That does it for him, whoever he was. Well done, Superman. Second level is set initially in a big mansion, and you're fighting little robots that look like the Mousers from Ninja Turtles, which I was also a big fan of growing up, by the way. This time you do get a new superpower. In addition to the punch, you sometimes have access to a spin move, where you spin like a drill and cut through into a more industrial level below. I guess you can only use that spin attack when you need it, because it doesn't do any damage. Oh, hello kids. I think the red Superman logo just refills your power move. Apparently I can't use the ladders. Yeah, in terms of this action, it definitely could have been like a Nintendo game. but of course it looks a lot nicer, being a 16-bit title. Oh, I remember this part. So you do a double tap, jump, kick. Then you have to use the super jumps to get up on these platforms here. I guess one of the problems of writing comic book storylines is that you have to have enemies that are matched for a superhero. It's kind of annoying that when you continue, it starts you at the very beginning of the stage again. I think this is actually a good place to cut the video off, since my trying to play this would probably be just more of the same, and it would get a little aggravating after a while. So again, this is Superman, released for the Sega Genesis in 1992. I wouldn't say it's a terrible game by any means, but it just has kind of a generic subpar feel as far as I'm concerned. Didn't really do it for me. If you're a huge Superman fan, or a huge fan of early Genesis titles, by all means feel free to check this out, or snag a copy. Anyway, as always, thank you very much for watching.